All right. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. This is Talking Shit, the shocking truth about constipation. Hey there, I'm Heather Gray. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And why are we talking about shit today? Because this was a huge part of my own health journey. And I love bringing lightness and education to a topic that most people aren't comfortable talking about. I found this work after 27 years of undiagnosed Lyme disease, celiac disease, Hashimoto's, and endometriosis. I was depressed, anxious, chronic widespread pain, horrible skin, bloating, constipated, exhausted, weight gain, and horrible periods, just to name a few. Back in 2013 is when I set out on my path to healing, and now I've lost over 100 pounds. Lessened my pain, no more suicidal thoughts. I'll talk more on that later. I have energy all day, and I'm proud to say that I help people destroy brain fog, chronic inflammation, and pain. So we're getting ready to take our talking shit journey. Here we go. Maybe. Come on. Oh. I'm already having technical difficulties. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, I know what I need to do. Haha. Haha. There we go. Growing up poor, neglected, and verbally abused, I never thought I would amount to much. I seriously should have and could have been a statistic. I was an at-risk teenager who became sexually active at a very young age and became an exotic dancer at the age of 19. I stayed in that industry for 6 years, which is about 5 years longer than the typical dancer does, because it's a pretty hardcore environment to stick around in for that length of time. But it just kind of goes to show you where my self-esteem and self-worth was at the time, that I, kind of would allow myself that toxic environment for that long. I had a perfect storm of unresolved trauma, issues in my genetics, poor lifestyle. So when I got bit by a tick when I was 13 and contracted Lyme disease, I became a perfect host. But I digress. Let's start at the beginning. I was born constipated. I remember at a very early age sitting on the potty until my feet fell asleep, because, when you're 3 or 4, your feet don't really touch the ground. So they're kind of just swinging. My mom would give me this thick, gross, nasty oils to help stop, soften my stool. But even back then, nobody was asking root cause, what's causing this toddler to not be able to go potty, right? They were just throwing band-aids at symptoms. Around the same time when I was 4, my uncle had killed himself. I have had 2 suicide attempts when I was a teenager, same as my son. I think there might be a history of mental illness in my family. What do you think? I was sick the majority of my life. And it was after the birth of my son, when I was watching him struggle kind of the same way I was struggling at a young age, is what started me in my path of healing. My son was finally diagnosed with celiac at the age of 2, shortly before his 2nd birthday. We were at a restaurant, a steakhouse, having lunch or something. It was midday, and he decided that he needed to go to the bathroom. He said he wasn't feeling well. So I took him to the bathroom, and the minute we walked in the door, he projectile vomited all over the bathroom. And I knew that it wasn't like cold and flu season. So there was something really going on. My spidey senses were going off. And so we took him to the urgent care, where they did an x-ray on him and found out that he was severely, severely constipated, which was bizarre because at the time, I can't remember if he was potty trained or still in diapers, but he was still going on a regular basis, but he was only moving very little. I didn't realize that he wasn't going enough. And so he got that backed up. The funny thing is like, he had lost 10 or 12 pounds in about 2 weeks. And you could count his ribs, and he had little skinny arms and little skinny legs, but he had this great big belly that was distended and had been distended for so long that the muscles actually separated like a pregnant person's. It was really bizarre. And it took quite a bit to actually get him diagnosed, because at first they just wanted to throw band-aids at symptoms. Give him Miralax. Okay, so I'd give him Miralax. And yeah, that would help for a little bit. And then a couple of days later, he would complain that his tummy hurt. And then they'd tell me to give him more Miralax. And finally, about the third time of that, I said, enough, I want to see a specialist. And thank God I did. The specialist knew exactly what was going on, like right off the bat. They're like, yeah, he's got celiac disease. We'd never heard of it at the time. So it was all a new learning curve. And that's a whole different story. But he did improve a little bit by being on a gluten-free diet, but not much, because at the time, all the doctors were telling us to do was just to stay off of gluten, stay away from wheat. But I had grown up with the typical standard American diet, right? So we were just substituting regular processed crap for gluten-free processed crap, right? So he started showing some more symptoms as he was getting older that I'll go into later. But also back then I was a smoker. I used to smoke Camel Turkish Silvers for years. And then I switched to American Spirits. I was a drinker. I loved my Captain and Coke. I loved Dr. Pepper. I used to eat fast food. I was diehard with my fast food. Like I loved Whoppers. No, what was the Whopper? Yeah. Burger King. I'd go through the Burger King drive-through to get a Whopper, and then I'd go through the McDonald's drive-through to get the fries because I didn't like Burger King's French fries. So, I guess what I'm just trying to say is that, I wasn't very much different than you. I used to also microwave food in plastic containers, and yes, this is a no-no, highly toxic. That's actually a whole nother workshop. But back then I thought I was doing pretty good, right? I kept decent grades. I was in college, although I had to work really, really hard to get them. I had steady work, but I couldn't keep a job for very long. I moved around a lot. I knew something was off, but I didn't know what. And according to the TV commercials, I just had a Gas-X, Tums, and Prozac deficiency. Fast forward some years when my kiddo was 9 and he started really struggling with his health stuff again. Severe constipation that would lead to these horrible, horrible back pains. Frequent urination, some behavioral stuff. He couldn't sleep at night. Every night before bed, he would just cry because he couldn't sleep. He would just lay there wide awake. At the same time, I was dealing with some pretty extreme fatigue, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. Needless to say, something had to change for the both of us, right? We were both in pretty gnarly shape. That was when I finally got diagnosed with Lyme disease after having it for 25 years. Sadly, I ran into the same issues with doctors that I did with my son, right? They just wanted to throw napalm at the Lyme disease, and they didn't really do anything to kind of support the host. So when I was going through treatment, I thought they were going to kill me. I seriously thought this is the way I'm going out. Until I saw the founder of FDN, which is what I am, a functional diagnostic nutritionist, Reed Davis, speak on a podcast called Underground Wellness. And he talked about supporting hormones, making sure that detoxification organs like the liver and the kidneys and, helping constipation, balancing hormones, reducing inflammation, and all that made sense to me, to support the host, right? Made a lot of sense. So at the time, I remember begging my ex-husband to let me take the course, because it was a course that you kind of would take to work on yourself while you were learning the tools. So when you graduated, you also had a new vocation as well. So it was like a twofer for me. I've always been excited about alternative healthcare. It was funny because even back when I was in high school, with the 2 suicidal attempts I had back then, I would research natural approaches, to mental health stuff. And I would find this great information on amino acids and herbs But like I said, at the same time, I was smoking cigarettes and eating fast food. And, nobody had ever explained to me that you can't supplement your way out of a poor diet, right? So, I had started on this journey ever since I was 17, 18 years old, but it took some time for I finally caught that last piece to my health puzzle, and that was FDN. I love this expression. No matter how common a symptom may be, it is never normal. I meet so many health-seeking, on-the-go professionals who just don't know what they don't know, right? Who just don't know how to get rid of their brain fog, stabilize their moods, lessen their chronic pain. They're not confident in their ability to lose weight, keep it off, or get the energy they need to get life done, right? Especially those of us that, work and juggle the household. It's quite gnarly. Or to get the not being able to control the reactive moods. That was a huge part of my learning curve this last year. And I kind of go into more of that a little later. But, when you feel like crap all the time, poor Karens, I hate what this word did to their name, right? Because I have so many Karens that I love. But when they say, like, don't be a Karen, or she's acting like a Karen, this gave me a newfound understanding, right? Empathy for folks who are acting like a Karen. Because what if they were like me? What if they were in chronic pain all the time? Their brain's not working right. They're exhausted, right? Are you going to be a very happy person when you show up in life? Or are you going to kind of act like a Karen? So next time you see someone like that, pat them on the head, give them a hug, show them some love, because they probably feel like crap. Let's see, I lost my place here. All right. Oh yeah, they don't have the time to research and figure this all out on their own. They've tried to do research, but they still can't find that missing puzzle piece to their health journey. All they really want is to have all day energy, lose weight, remember things, right? Concentrate and get out of mental and physical pain. In a program like what I teach them how to destroy brain fog, because guess what? That's not normal. I teach them how to have all day energy. I teach them how to have no more painful periods, because again, that's not normal. And so many women just take that as the status quo. I help them lessen chronic widespread pain, get your sex drive back. How many of you would like your sex drive back, right? I remember when I started this journey, back in 2013, I was, in my mid 30s, and that's supposed to be like, from what I was told, your peak as far as like a woman's sex drive goes, and mine was flatlined. And found out, after having the chronic disease for so many years and being constipated, it threw my hormones out of balance. And so after a few little tweaks, my periods were no longer a problem, and I had a sex drive back. Woohoo. So just to recap, what brought me into this work was being born constipated. Back then, I was also heat intolerant, which was very bizarre. I remember my mom styling my hair when I was a little girl with a blow dryer, and she could only put it on me for like a minute or two before I felt like I was going to pass out and puke, and which didn't go over real well with my mother. So I got made fun of for being heat intolerant. And I didn't know that was an actual thing until I got older, and was just like, oh, that's why I couldn't handle having my hair done when I was a young kid. Suicide, my family, and addiction equals trauma. Chronic daily belly pains, gassy heartburn, falling asleep in class. That was always a fun one, especially in high school. People would do bad things to people who fell asleep in class. I had all kinds of Sharpie and stuff that I had to wash off me on a regular basis because of falling asleep in class. Overweight, like I said, I've basically gained and lost the same 100 pounds at least 3 or 4 times in my life. Back and neck started going out on me when I was 18. Believe it or not, I sneezed my senior year of high school, and that was the first time my back went out on me. And I thought, wait a minute, I thought this only happened to old folks. Chronic infections, I used to get sick a lot. Again, that's not normal. Finally, at the age of 35, I started to get answers, was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And at 43, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, celiac, endometriosis, histamine issues, pyrrole disorder, and undomethylator. Those last two actually kind of contribute to a lot of mental health issues. So don't give up if you're suffering with mental health issues and you haven't found any answers yet. We still just keep looking. We talked about why I do this, but who am I? My name is Heather Gray, and I help fast-paced professional women and men with a deep desire to heal themselves without surgery and the use of drugs. I am a FDN with a specialty in trauma and toxins, gut and brain health. When you remove the hidden stressors in your body, it can heal. And hidden stressors can show up anything as trauma, which can be big T trauma, like early childhood trauma, divorce, PTSD from going to war, or it can be trauma like environmental toxins, mold exposure, chronic illness. All that stuff gets lodged in your nervous system the same way. And sadly, it can keep us stuck. So if you don't, heal that trauma, you're only going to get so far in your healing journey when you go to work on the physical stuff. So hidden stressors, so it could be trauma, food sensitivities. That's like the number one low-hanging fruit that I find in people are food sensitivities. When you've probably heard the term leaky gut, right? Our gut is supposed to be very, very tight junctions. Nothing's supposed to really be able to get through. Sadly, because of diet, stress, molds, prescription drugs, all these put punctures in our gut, making it leaky. So now it's no longer tight. And so now food like apples, right, is getting out of your gut and into your bloodstream. Apples don't belong in your bloodstream. So now your immune system is putting on a full-on war with apples. And so sadly, when it causes a war like that, there's, what do they call it? There's damage to the tissue around it, right? There's collateral damage, which then causes more inflammation, and then it just keeps this cycle going. So all these little hidden stressors, and there's so many more, I'm just not getting into them, but they're all like relieving a brick off the body so then the body can breathe and do what it's supposed to do. Test, don't guess. So that's what I do as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I take functional lab work to get to the root causes of a person's malfunctions instead of throwing band-aids at symptoms. Every bite you eat either takes you one step closer to health or towards disease. Please choose health. So like I said before, easily lost and gained over 100 pounds, like 3 times in my life. Went from a level 7 pain to about a level 2. No more suicidal thoughts, thank God. Anxiety and depression almost all gone. No pharmaceutical drugs. I have energy all day to get shit done. I'm no longer constipated or have gut issues. And I'm not saying any of this to brag. I'm just saying to show you what's possible. It's funny, one of the lab tests that I did, the GI map, the stool test, I tested positive for blastocystis hominis. And it's a pretty common parasite, especially for those with animals. And I've always had pets. But it can make you bloated and painful distension. I used to tell people it didn't matter what I ate. Every time I ate, my belly would just get so distended. I felt like Violet off of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And, I always expected some Oompa Loompas to come jumping out of the wall somewhere and go roll me off to relieve the pressure. I mean, I joke about it now, but it was absolutely horrible and quite debilitating at times. And then, of course, that pressure has to come out somewhere. So yeah, not fun. People that hire me struggle with autoimmune, anxiety, depression, mood orders, fatigue, tinnitus, painful periods. I'm not going to read the whole list there, but I love working with these folks. Do you know why? Because they were me. This is just some of my training that I've done in the past 10 years. I've tried to kind of marry this, everything that kind of went wrong in my life. I then dove deep. So like after my divorce 8-9 years ago, I became a passion and intimacy coach and really dived into relationships and just the feminine and masculine and why people do what they do. And then, of course, a lot of my own health journey has led me, the FDN stuff, recently becoming certified in toxins, gluten-free warrior, heart math, breath work. All those were to help kind of remove that hidden stressors, right? SE work, that's somatic experiencing. Super, super recommend if you do have issues with anxiety, depression, and you know that you've got some trauma that you haven't worked out yet. What's awesome about those modalities is that it's not like a therapy that you have to talk about it, because they've found that sometimes talking about it can actually kind of re-trigger the trauma and keep you in that loop. So this is just like a gentle way of moving stuff out of your nervous system and getting you out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. And I study for fun. I mean, and this is no joke. Like after I start my day at 7 o'clock in the morning, at 7 o'clock at night, I'm reading books on toxins and mindfulness and gluten-free warrior. I can't get enough. After years of hating my body, fluctuating weight gain, a couple trips to the psych ward, prescription drugs, being called crazy, the last straw for me came this time, actually last year, when my husband told me he couldn't be married to an angry person anymore, because I'm human and I fell off the wagon a little bit with my program, because I told you I graduated in 2013. And then I took about a 7-year hiatus after my divorce because I kind of lost my mind and needed to figure out who I was and what I was about. And I kind of went back to drinking and eating on the go. And, now I'm a single parent and didn't have a whole lot of money. And so I let a lot of the diet and everything slip to the side. And so this last year, I just recently lost 50 pounds again because I had allowed myself to gain weight. I was back to being in a lot of pain again, and definitely had some nervous system issues. Like if I was in the kitchen and my husband or my stepson would walk up the stairs and my back was turned, I would turn around and like scream bloody murder and jump like 10 feet in the air. And then I'd get all pissed off at him for scaring me, because it would send adrenaline into my system and it felt toxic. And of course they felt horrible for scaring me that way. They didn't do it on purpose, but it was just a definite wake up call. There was a lot of symptoms that, again, no matter how common the symptom may be, it's never normal, that were pointing me back into the direction of I needed to put my money where my mouth was and do the testing on myself and get to the root cause of what was going on. So that was the last year. And man, I can't get over how much a person can turn around in a short period of time, relative, if you think about the lifespan of a person. So hope, there is hope. That's when I started digging for answers. And I'm not that different from you. Everyone can feel this way, which is why I'm so excited to get to our topic. The medical establishment defines constipation as having less than 3 BMs or bowel movements a week. But I'm going to challenge you and say that you should be having at least 1 bowel movement daily to avoid toxins recirculating back into your system. Signs that you are constipated: less than 1 bowel movement a day, dry, hard stools, painful stools that are difficult to pass, feeling like you're not completely emptying your bowels. According to the Cleveland Clinic, at least 2.5 million people see their doctors every year due to constipation. That's a lot of people who can't shit. Being constipated is also a big contributor to the inability to lose weight and can also cause imbalances in your hormones And you can also experience an overall feeling of fatigue and sluggishness. When we become toxic, nothing in our body can perform correctly. You might say, how did I get this way? You don't know what you don't know, right? So the top 6 reasons for why your pooper is stopped up. Number 1, eating processed food and not enough whole food. That just kind of self-explanatory. You know, if your body doesn't, if you don't recognize an ingredient on a label, sadly, neither does your body. And when your body doesn't recognize something that you eat, it causes inflammation. And when you cause inflammation, you know, it's inflaming your gut, which is going to make it harder for things to pass through. And it's also going to make it really hard for you to absorb the nutrients out of any kind of food that you are eating, because everything's inflamed. So number 2 would be eating too many inflammatory foods like grains, dairy, sugar, and corn. So that's like first number 1 step. The easiest low-hanging fruit is to remove inflammatory foods and just get that body, the fire in that body quelled down. Because inflammation on itself, it's not an evil thing. It's a natural part of the way our body clears out, you know, dead cells and deals with infections. It's when it becomes too much is when it becomes a problem. And then it becomes the root of many, 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 many diseases out there right now. Certain medications can actually cause a sluggish bowel as well, especially prescription pain pills. And after surgery, I mean, nothing worse than that's like a whole new level of constipation if you've ever had surgery and had to go on pain pills. These days, because I live in Colorado, thank God, if I have a surgery on anything, like I had some dental work done 2 years ago, I went and got gummies, some 1-to-1 CBD THC gummies instead of doing the pain pills. There's no risk of getting addicted to them, and I didn't get constipated, and they totally helped with the pain. It was awesome. Number 3, this one, it never ceases to amaze me when I start to work with clients and I start to really drill down and ask them about their water. They're not drinking enough water. Let's start with taking a drink of water. If you've got a water bottle with you, I could use a drink of water. Why don't you join me? Fabulous. You should be drinking half of your weight. I'm sorry, there's got to be another way to say that. I don't like shitting on people. You need to be drinking half of your weight in ounces of water a day. So like I weigh 190, so I should be drinking 95 ounces of water a day. Non-negotiable. You know, I've got my nice big water bottle that I carry around with me, and I know that it takes 3 of these a day, you know, to meet my quota. And that's not including you can't count your coffee and your tea consumption, especially if it's caffeinated, because those have a tendency to dehydrate you. So they're doing the exact opposite of hydrating you. So you can't, it's not wise to count that into your hydration, your water intake. Number 4, not getting enough movement. This doesn't mean strenuous exercise. Actually, I'm finding that is more harmful to the body and to the adrenals when you're trying to heal. Typically, when I start working with somebody, they are not allowed to do anything other than go for a walk, yoga, and stretch for the full 3 months that we're working together. Because the human body, I really am not a big fan of over exercising and these hardcore cardio type stuff. Really, really tough on the adrenals, really tough on the joints, really tough on the heart. And if you've already got symptoms going on, right, because it's a sign that there's something going on, a lot of folks have adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue is like having a horse that's down, right? Those are your poor adrenals. And now you're whipping it to get back up. And that's what you're doing with over exercising. So, I mean, my husband has lost over 75 pounds in the past 2 years, and I've lost easily over 50 pounds in the last year. And all we've done is walk. Most of the stuff that we've done is you know, diet, making sure we're getting enough sleep, drinking enough water. But Yeah, so this means walking, yoga, stretching every day, minimum of 30 minutes. Stress and not feeling your emotions. So this goes back to a little bit of that trauma work that I talked about. And there's two sides to your nervous system. There's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Parasympathetic has to do with rest and digest, and your sympathetic is fight, flight, or freeze, right? So when you're stressed out all the time and you're in the fight, flight, or freeze, right? Our body is not worried about digesting. It's worried about get me away from that damn tiger that's chasing me, right? So when we eat on the go, when we're grabbing food quickly, not being mindful, if we're stressed out during mealtime, skipping meals, blood sugar crashes, all that fun stuff, it might seem small and insignificant at the time, but it has a cumulative effect over time. So stress, not feeling your feelings, stuffing your feelings. I have a feeling this is what led to a lot of my constipation as a kid, because I was not allowed to have feelings. Like anger was the only thing that was really allowed to show up. So and I've always been a sensitive soul. So any other type of emotion that would come up, I kind of feel like a pack of wolves that would kind of just rip me apart. So I learned to swallow my feelings, swallow my feelings, swallow my feelings. Think about it. There's a gut-brain connection, right? That's huge. And they say that we make over 70 to 85% of our serotonin in our gut, right? So now if you're swallowing your feelings, swallowing your feelings, swallowing your feelings, stuffing, it's going to back things up because it's all connected. It's all connected. Not going when your body directs you to go. Women, I would love to see if there's a statistic, and I meant to look that up, if men or women are more likely to be constipated, because I know I'm really guilty. A lot of women are, of not going when your body directs you to go. It has a lot to do, and I learned this back when I was doing the passion and intimacy coaching, that men can be very single focused, and women have a very diffuse focus. So men, being single focused, if they're in the middle of doing something and their body tells them they have to go, they stop what they're doing and they go, right? Women have a tendency to multitask. Let me just do this one more thing before I stop and pee, let me just do this one more thing, before I go to the bathroom. And next thing I know, it's always a fire alarm for me, right? It's always like, oh my God, I have to pee, because I've been holding it for so long. I'm not going when my body's telling me to go, and I keep pushing it to the edge to the point where now I can barely hold it. It's the same thing with going number two. If I had a job where, say there was like a meeting, right, that just happened to be when my body decided it was time to go, I would shut that signal off. I'd be like, stop it. I can't go now. I don't have the time. After you continue to do that so much, your body starts like, okay, fine. And it doesn't give you the signals anymore to go, because you're not going to listen to them anyway. So yeah, believe it or not, listen to your body. When it has to go, go. There are a few things you can do to get your body moving now. So remember that parasympathetic, sympathetic side that we talked about. So I always try to do some breathing exercises, some deep breathing into the diaphragm. And doing this breathing helps your nervous system get into that rest and digest mode instead of the fight or flight. So I try to do a 4-6-8 breath about 3 times before every meal. Literally takes like 20 seconds. So let's start. So what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 6, and then breathe out for 8. So that exhale being longer than the inhale actually stimulates your vagus nerve and stimulates your body to go into that parasympathetic state. So breathe, and all through your nose. So breathe in for 4, hold for 6, breathe out for 8. that felt so good. I'm going to do it one more time. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 6. And out for 8. See, I don't know about you. I should have done more of that breathing at the beginning. It might have helped with some of my nerves, because like now I'm like, oh, that felt good. So yes, doing this before every meal, very, very helpful. Another helpful trick, magnesium. I love magnesium. So remember when I said that it's best to go when your body directs you to go? And there was like 2 summers ago, I was working on a ranch, and I typically, get up at 6, but in my normal day-to-day world, I wouldn't be out in the world until around 9. So that kind of gave my body and my stomach and everything enough time to get everything moving and working. Well, when I started working on the ranch and working with the animals, and it's, hot in the summertime, we started like now at 6:30, because we wanted to get, a lot of the work done in the coolness before noon. And so sadly, my body wasn't awake before I would go into work. And then now it would skip that whole process. And that was horrible. I went like 4 days that way with not going. I had to do some extra hardcore stuff to get it moving. But lately I've been using magnesium glycinate, and not all magnesium forms are the same. So I highly, highly recommend, if you're like, I'm taking a magnesium, but it's not really doing anything, check to see what kind it is. But I really, really love glycinate to help keep the bowels moving. And you can do up to 200 milligrams, even twice a day. I don't, because that would give me the runs. But 200 milligrams before I go to bed now. So one, it helps with kind of calming everything. So it helps with sleep. But then it also, like, first thing in the morning. So now it doesn't matter what time I have to go to work, because the first thing I'm doing in the morning is going number 2. Like, how awesome is that? Fiber. I shoot for 25 milligrams a day, and I do it with flaxseed. I, make a smoothie every day with fresh fruit, or some frozen fruit, frozen bananas, frozen blueberries, and some coconut, full fat coconut milk. It's awesome with my little flaxseed. Love it. If you're not used to a lot of fiber, start slow, because it can cause gastric upset, bloating, and gas if you start off too fast and you're not used to it. Also, make sure you're drinking plenty of water when you start upping your fiber, because if you're not drinking enough water, again, water alone will keep you from being constipated, but if you're not drinking enough water with your new fiber intake, it can really back things up. So doubly make sure you're drinking enough water. Bonus info that I didn't have on here, but it reminded me today when I was at this networking group this morning, and I ran into the chiropractor, right? So the chiropractor is your body's electrician. All the signals that come from your brain, right, going down your spinal cord, your nervous system, all of them attach to different organs, different places in the body. And so if you've got any structural issues, right, if your neck is out, if you've got bad posture, and you're hunched over a lot on the computer or reading or on your phone, all that impedes your electrical impulses that are telling different organs to do different things, like move your bowels, right? So if you've had a problem with chronic constipation and you've tried a lot of these things we've talked about and you still can't get things moving, go see a chiropractor. Because I never failed. A lot of times they would be like, oh, well, this is why you can't go. And it would be because one of my vertebrae was out and, pinching things. Another thing that I do on a semi-regular basis these days is coffee enemas. And that's a whole nother conversation in itself, but it's something that you can do at home to help with chronic constipation. I don't have to do them as often now, because I've gotten things moving finally after years and years and years of trying so many different things. I've gotten regular enough that I only do that because I have problems with detoxifying. I have some genetic mutations that doesn't allow me to detoxify as properly. So I do it more as a preventative to kind of help my detoxification organs, my liver, and less about the constipation, which is what started me on the coffee enemas. And I know it sounds bizarre, but there's actually a lot of research going back a long time about the benefits of coffee enemas. So time to get regular. First off, I just want to say thank you so much. If you heard something today that resonated with you, I'd love to see if what I do is a fit for you. I'd love to have you just jump on a discovery call. And if you're one of the first 7 people who sign up, there is an extra bonus of $500 off one of my courses. Results are life-changing and typical. I have found people have suffered long enough. Act now, feel better now. I'm going to open this up if you folks, let me give you I'm going to stop recording now. So just thank you. Have a blessed day. I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to allow yourself to unmute yourself. So if you have any questions, so let me hold on one sec. Stop recording.